everyone, my name is Tiara, aka Bookworm Babe, and today I'm going to be doing my September wrap-up. So I'm excited, I'm on time with this video. There's no stall on it, and you know, I'm excited to show you guys the books that I read in September. I only have 3 books that I did in September. One of them was a very heavy read. It was more of like a textbook, scholarly work type of book, and personally it takes me a lot longer to get through a piece like that because it's not necessarily conversational language, and it's a lot of hard information to kind of get through. I don't know, I guess that depends on like people and like, you know, your reading tendencies, but for me it took me a while, so it wasn't too packed of a month. It was only 3 books like I mentioned, and yeah, I am ready to just jump in and share them with you guys. So let's get started. So the first book that I read for September is called Halfbreed, and this is written by Maria Campbell. So Maria Campbell is a Métis woman from Canada. She's actually quite well known in like the Indigenous community, which at the time I wasn't like aware of that, but I was in the bookstore and the book caught my attention, and this is supposed to be a restored edition of the book. Originally it was published in 1973. So basically it is a memoir, only up until a certain point in Maria's life. At the time when she wrote it, I think she might have only been in her 40s, we'll say, and I think the memoir really kind of just goes up until her 20s. But it's just basically about her experience growing up as an Indigenous woman in Canada, and basically just all the different trials and tribulations that come with that. So she talks about, you know, her family growing up in her childhood, her grandmother. She was very, very close with her grandmother, and her grandmother was just a very important person in her life and very significant. She had you know, a bunch of brothers and sisters. I think altogether with her and her brothers and sisters there was 8 of them. Unfortunately, when she was, I think, about 12 years old, her mother passed away, and then because she's the eldest, it kind of put a lot of pressure on her to take over the household and take care of her siblings and help with her father and stuff, who obviously took it very hard. But there's also a lot of fun moments. She talks about like really good memories of things that they used to do as a family, different like ceremonies, how their town was so excited whenever there was a wedding. You know, she talks about like the Indigenous weddings and stuff like that, and it's really cool in that way. But then also it talks about, as she got older, she dealt with a lot of hardship with herself as well, with, you know, addiction, and as she had kids and stuff, she wasn't always able to take care of her kids, so she would have to kind of leave them in the care of others while she kind of, you know, was able to kind of like figure out her life and try different things and kind of like, you know, figure out what she was going to do. And then ultimately she ends up returning back home to, you know, her hometown after spending time, you know, way far away and stuff. As she comes back as well, you know, she wants to find her brothers and sisters because they were taken away, you know, and put into like foster care, I believe, and stuff like that. So there's just, it's a lot of themes that are surrounding like family and the relationships within like family, you know, like father-daughter, daughter, or like sister, older sister to siblings, mother and children, granddaughter and like grandmother. And I think the way she illustrates all her relationships that she had with her family members and siblings was really nice, actually. I liked it. And despite the fact that there were hard moments in the book, it was ultimately, it was a very like, it was one of those things where basically there was light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. Because if you actually like research Maria Campbell, she has gone on to do like amazing things. I don't remember every single one of them, but she has accomplished a lot and done a lot to help with like the Indigenous movements in Canada. So she's actually a very significant figure. So I would highly suggest this book. This was a 5 out of 5 for me. And I think if you are looking to put more Indigenous authors on your shelf, which is something that I really like wanted to do as well this year, is read memoirs. I don't know what it is, but I personally really enjoy memoirs, and I've actually started finished another memoir by an Indigenous author for October, which I'll share at the end of this month. But I really enjoy memoirs, and I think they're an interesting way to kind of diversify our shelves and just get like a very personal experience from the authors that we're reading from, because you know, it's not just a fictional story, you're reading about someone's life, so you get just, you know, you get a very like up close and personal sort of experience, so to speak, with these books. So yeah, I would highly recommend this. Book number 2 is Diasporic Dislocations. So this is the book that I was talking about that took me forever to read. I think it took me like a little over 3 weeks, 3.5, something like that. It took me the majority of the month actually to read this book, because I think I finished Halfbreed in maybe 2 days, 2.5. It wasn't very long. And the other book that I'm going to show you guys after this, I think I read in 3 days. So that was like 5 days of the month, and the rest of the month I spent reading Diasporic Dislocations. So this book is like, if you're looking for, you know, information, a lot of critical study on Indo-Caribbean culture, specifically here, particularly here, women, because this is literally focused on Indo-Caribbean women, this is an amazing place to start. If you are working on, like, I don't know, if you need it for a thesis, for school, if you are just doing it for personal research. For me, it was more of a personal research because, you know, I'm not in school to be writing like a thesis or anything, but there was a lot of information here, and it's really great in a way that you can just go back and reference things. So I find that it's kind of reminded me of Coolie Woman, just because it's like a textbook, so there's plenty that you can go back and refer to. So to kind of give you guys a sense of what the book is, Diasporic Dislocations dives into a few different topics. There are 6 different topics in the book, which is framing Indo-Caribbean female subjectivity, engendering Indo-Caribbean and Afro-Caribbean feminist dialogues, creativity, identity, and culinary agency, orality, Indo-Caribbean feminism and Aji culture, from disposition to recuperation, and sexuality, violence, and the female body erotic. So you can kind of get an idea of what each topic is just from the, you know, the titles of them. But basically, the book examines different works, so different novels and, you know, short stories and stuff like that by Indo-Caribbean women authors. So some of them are Lakshmi Prasad, Ramabai Espinet, just people who are very notable in the Indo-Caribbean author community in that sense, and of course all women. And through those books, it examines how the different topics are illustrated in the book and how it kind of overall contributes to Indo-Caribbean culture. Two of them, I personally found the culinary agency and the sexual violence one very interesting. So especially considering food is so important to our culture. Food is how we've been able to maintain connections with like our Indian roots, as well as fuse with like what our Caribbean culture is nowadays. So that was really interesting. It was interesting the way they, you know, she was able to like navigate the way authors have explored culinary and like the importance of, you know, culinary arts in their works, and how it is significant to our culture, significant to the women in our culture, because food has been a way that women show love. Women, you know, have had like maybe even, you know, if you've had certain spaces taken away from you, maybe the one space that we've had to ourselves that was completely dominated by us might have been like the you know, the culinary sector. So that was a place of our own where we were the boss and things, just things like that. So it really analyzes those things, but in a much more scholarly fashion. So yeah, I really enjoyed it. There was a lot of new things in there that I never really thought about before, and now I feel like all the books that were recommended in here, well, not recommended, but all the books that were analyzed in here, I really want to like go pick up those books, because I want to look at them kind of through the lens of what I read and see, you know, make those connections for myself, because I'm a little bit more hands-on like that. I can read about it here, which is great, but I want to be able to pick up the book, read the book, and then make the connections for myself and be like, oh, okay, I see what they meant when they were saying, like, you know, the significance of like the smell of the food in this paragraph and how it relates to X, Y, and Z, just things like that. So I want to do it for myself. So I feel like this is really good to open yourself up to more like personal research you can do if you're looking to do something that's a little more personal, if you're not using it for maybe like a school purpose or like a work purpose or something like that. So overall, 5 out of 5. Definitely if you need a little more time to digest like more scholarly materials, I guess I'll say, then you know, it might take you a bit longer to read this, as it took me a bit longer to kind of get through it. But if you just love stuff like that and you can breeze through it, then hey, this will be your cup of tea. But I highly recommend it for any type of research that you might want to do. So book number 3, our final book, is called The Woman in the White Kimono, and this is written by Anna Johns. So this book, I have so many good things to say about this book. It was so good. So there's 2 storylines. One takes place in 1957. It follows Nako Nakamura, who is a young Japanese girl. She's 17 years old. And then the other storyline follows Tori Kovac. It's in present day America, and eventually their 2 stories intertwine. So I'm gonna explain this and try not to give away too much, because like I feel like you just have to read it. You can't, there can't be spoilers. So Nako's in love with a American soldier, so a white American soldier. At the time, you know, between the different wars and conflicts that have gone on between America and Japan, there's a lot of, you know, tension and conflict. And when she brings you know, her man to meet her parents, because her parents, basically there's the person that you would want to marry, and then there's the person that your parents would want you to marry. And you know, you do the meetings, like the match meetings, and then kind of make a decision from there. Her parents want her to marry Satoshi, who is one of her father's business associates, sons, because by marrying him, basically the family secures their position, they secure comfort, they secure basically just not having to worry. Like, it's a stable marriage financially, and you know, Nako will never have to worry about being like uncomfortable or living an uncomfortable life. But she's in love with Jimmy Kovac, who she calls Hajime, and I honestly love their love story. It's actually very cute, but it's also so sad because it's kind of like one of those forbidden loves. Her parents completely disapprove, but she goes on to marry him anyway. And even though she marries Jimmy, it's like from the time the marriage happens, things just go downhill from there. So Nako finds out that she's pregnant, and that already is like a huge kind of like obstacle. It's 1957, she's a young girl, he's American, like you know, their marriage isn't necessarily recognized, you know, so it's just a lot of like taboo, a lot of shunned kind of concepts there. So then in the present day, Tori's father has just passed away from cancer, and he leaves her this letter that he had written that had basically came back. He sent us a letter and it came back like return mail. It was never answered, and he basically told her, like, before the life I lived with, you know, you and your mother, I lived another life. And and he dies. He never gets to explain it to her, so she reads this letter and finds out that, you know, her father told a lot of stories to her growing up, one being about a woman in a white kimono, and you know, he happens to be like a military man from when he was younger. And as the story, you know, goes on, Tori's on this journey to find out like what was her father's past life, like how did all these stories that she heard as a child that she always thought were just tall tales, you know, suddenly make sense. And it's like, oh shit, they were real, and they all relate back to, you know, stuff like that. So basically Tori's journey takes her to Japan, and there she gets to, you know, figure out what happens. So I think even from that, you guys can obviously piece together like Nako and Tori, so they're gonna meet, and you know, there's a thing there and how they're connected, but there's so much little details that I don't want to give away because you have to read it. The end was so emotional. I cried for like a good 5 minutes. That's how emotional it was. There's just all these themes of like father-daughter, mother-daughter, you know, a husband and wife, like loving relationship, friendships. It's a lot of like sentimental relationships in the book, and I feel for Nako so much, like as you go through like her young life and what happens to her following her marriage to Jimmy, finding out she's pregnant. It's, oh god, it ripped my whole soul out. So this is a 5 out of 5 as well. I would highly recommend this, guys, like highly recommend. So all 3 books that I read for September were amazing reads. They were all 5 out of 5. Yeah, I was very excited to do this video this month because I was just over the moon to talk about these ones, and they're all in their own way like just really amazing, because they're like, it's a diverse set of books. We got a memoir, we have a fictional story that is based on a couple little, you know, pieces of like real life stuff that formed some of the more like historical elements. And then we have like a whole like scholarly work on, you know, negotiating female writers and their work, particularly Indo-Caribbean female writers, which is super important. So all of these were just absolutely amazing. I can't stress it enough. So for next week, I am going to get back to doing a couple more tip videos. I was supposed to do editing tips and I forgot I was supposed to do my September wrap up, so we're gonna do that one next week. And so yeah, you guys can stay tuned for that one, and I hope that, you know, the last video you guys enjoyed as well and thought it was helpful. I did my best to kind of really like find good tips, or just think of good tips that I use on a daily basis with any of my writing, and yeah, being able to share that with like you guys that hopefully you can use as well. So that's it for me today. I will see you guys next week and we'll talk editing. Bye!